Hey there, crypto family. Welcome back to the XRP Insider channel. It's so good to have you here with me again. Today we're diving deep into XRP, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. I hope you're having an absolutely amazing day, no matter where you are in this beautiful world of ours. So, let's jump right in. I came across something fascinating from Jungle Inc. Crypto News that I just had to share with you. Arthur Brito dropped this bombshell. He said, XRP is the hidden plumbing. I expect the majority of people who use Ripple's payment network to be able to ignore XRP. The value of XRP is probably less important than this spread. Now, here's where it gets interesting. People immediately started saying, wait, Arthur Brito doesn't think XRP's value matters? But hold up, that's completely missing the point. He absolutely does care about XRP's value. In fact, David Schwartz has explained this multiple times, and here's why XRP has to reach a high price. Picture this with me for a second. Right now, as we speak, companies are building massive XRP treasuries. We're talking about enormous liquidity pools that are going to form over the next few years. Pools that will be used for payments between entire countries. And here's the kicker. XRP is becoming more and more scarce. At the same time, we've got this incredible rise of tokenization happening. We're looking at trillions upon trillions of dollars in real-world assets coming to the XRP ledger. People are going to be moving these assets around while also sending bigger and bigger cross-border payments from point A to point B.
Now think about this logically. If XRP stays at a cheap price while scarcity is increasing, what happens? One single transaction could potentially eat up the entire supply. That's exactly why XRP needs to be priced much, much higher. When demand meets scarcity, boom. That's why I believe XRP will become a 5-digit asset. Here's what's really exciting. We're transitioning out of the speculation phase and into the utility phase. The quiet part, it's now being said out loud, and I want you to hear this.
Yeah, no, I am a fan of Bitcoin. I think it's going to rally. You know, it's a real asset. It is going to have real value in the future. The challenge is it doesn't transact. It doesn't solve the real world problems. There's other blockchain for that, but I think that Bitcoin is positioned well. It's just going to probably cool off for a second as real world applications come out here in new technology.
And I think what we haven't seen yet that I still think we will eventually see is a separation of wheat and chaff of, you know, what are the assets? How are these technologies being used to solve real problems that have real demand versus ones, you know, I'll pick on Dogecoin. I don't get it. You know, other than Elon Musk as the central actor, you know, I don't see the use case and the purpose. And I'm sure I'll get lots of shit for saying that Dogecoin's, but you know, oh well.
You know what's really fascinating? Everyone still thinks meme coins are going to survive once regulations hit. But here's what's going to happen to Bitcoin when regulations come down. They're going to separate it out and label it as a speculative asset. Meanwhile, they're going to point to cryptocurrencies like XRP and say these solve real problems. Where do you think smart money is going to flow? Into something that actually solves real-world problems. And it's not just XRP. We're talking about XLM, XDC, and others too. But here's the thing. This narrative shift is already happening. And it's only going to accelerate because everything is almost complete now. The new financial system, it's closer than you might think. I found this incredible insight from Mr. Man. We are clearly in the middle of a new industrial revolution, according to the European Security Market Authority. And you know what really kicked things into high gear? 2020. That's when everything accelerated into this fourth industrial revolution at warp speed. Digital asset investors shared something that really puts this all in perspective. They posted a list of people who became mega rich during the Industrial Revolution. And it got me thinking. 100 years from now, there's going to be a similar list of people who were early in crypto. Think about it. John D. Rockefeller with Standard Oil, Andrew Carnegie with his steel empire, Cornelius Vanderbilt dominating shipping and railroads, J.P. Morgan consolidating entire industries. These names are still remembered today as legends. And here's the thing, you could be on that list. The people who emerge as legends from the crypto space will be those who held on long enough, who had the vision to see XRP hit those incredible price points, who built generational wealth when others couldn't see the bigger picture. This is your moment. This is our moment.
The foundation is being laid right now for the next generation of wealth builders. This is our moment, everyone.
The fourth industrial revolution isn't coming, it's already here. All you need to do is position yourself in the right cryptocurrencies, and 100 years from now, people will still remember your name. You'll be a legend. But here's something that caught my attention. The Winklevoss twins are calling for a $1 million Bitcoin price as Gemini goes public. Now, these guys are all over mainstream media, pushing this $1 million Bitcoin narrative. But here's what they're not telling you. They went to Ripple for a line of credit to help fund their IPO. They've got to keep that Bitcoin story alive, right? These are people who've been getting paid to promote Bitcoin for years, but somebody has to be the exit liquidity. And that's exactly what I think is happening here. Deep down, they know Bitcoin isn't hitting $1 million. They want to bring in as many retail investors as possible so those investors become their exit liquidity. And the data is backing this up. Bitcoin sits at a crossroads right now. Spot ETF inflows are dropping while futures traders are absorbing all the sell pressure. The money is literally shifting out of Bitcoin ETFs. The demand is dying. And those OG Bitcoin holders, they're waking up and selling off their positions. Here's my prediction. Bitcoin has one more push upward before it comes crashing down. All these people selling the narrative that the 4-year cycle is dead and Bitcoin is up only from here, they already know the crash is coming.
They're pushing this story because they want the price to go as high as possible before they cash out, leaving retail investors holding the bag. But we know better because we're XRP investors. We can see this shift happening in real time with all the XRP ETF filings. That money flowing out of Bitcoin ETFs, it's going to flow into XRP ETFs. Some will go to Ethereum ETFs, some to Solana ETFs, some to HBAR ETFs. But I believe XRP is going to capture a massive percentage of that flow. The demand for XRP ETFs is going to be absolutely astronomical. Check this out from On Dope Finance. This progression is fascinating. First it was dollars, then treasuries, now stocks and ETFs. Tokenized treasuries exploded from $1 billion just 18 months ago to $7 billion today. We're expecting the exact same thing to happen with tokenized stocks and ETFs.
Are tokenized stocks and ETFs the next frontier?
We would like to believe it is. Typically, it's very hard to predict which assets actually get adoption, but when you think about the latent demand globally that is out there for these assets, I think it is pretty significant and a lot of people underestimate it. Right now, when you look at stable coins, we're already coming up on almost $300 billion, in large part because hundreds of millions of people globally have figured out that the stable coin is a very easy way to get access to the US dollar, and by putting it on blockchain rails, it actually becomes better than if it's just in a bank account because you can freely send it around 24/7. The same thing has started to happen with tokenized treasuries. It went from $1 billion or so 18 months ago to now $7 billion. And we expect the same thing to start to occur for stocks and ETFs. There are about 400 million people outside the US that have a crypto exchange account, but most likely do not have a brokerage account because access to brokerage accounts historically has been a lot more difficult to get. So we believe you'll start to see crypto exchanges and crypto wallets start to list stocks in tokenized form, really opening up access to that global audience that historically has not had that.
Did you catch that? Taking the stock market global? That's huge. But notice what else he mentioned. Stablecoins are the vehicle getting the US dollar into places around the world where it could never reach before. All thanks to blockchain and crypto. And this is just the beginning. Even before Blackrock announced it, I predicted they'd tokenize those Bitcoin ETFs, and guess what? That's exactly what they're looking at doing right now. Next up, they'll tokenize actual Bitcoin itself. Mark my words. Now, here's something really interesting. MoneyGram CEO Alexander Holmes talking about choosing Stellar. People always claimed that the Ripple versus SEC case wasn't holding Ripple back at all, but it was actually a game changer for MoneyGram.
they ended the partnership with Ripple and moved to Stellar. Let's watch this.
With Ripple. Ripple was co-founded by Jed McCaleb, who went on to found Stellar. So I'm wondering why did you feel Stellar is a better fit than Ripple?
The Ripple product was very, very different, right? We were doing a lot of back end, foreign exchange trading cross border. I think, as we've said, many times, the process and the technology worked, and we had a great experience with Ripple. They tend to focus on a lot of the back end pieces. They're obviously focused quite a bit on cross border funds flow through RippleNet. With the changes and the challenge that the SEC put forward, it was very difficult for us to continue in that relationship based on the way that was structured, and so we both agreed to move on. The partnership here with Stellar is very different.
And that's why they moved on from Ripple. There was absolutely nothing wrong with Ripple's product. It was the fact that Ripple was getting sued by the SEC. When that lawsuit began, MoneyGram had to make a business decision, and they shifted to Stellar. Everyone always says, well, MoneyGram left Ripple because Ripple had problems, and they saw Stellar as superior. That wasn't the case at all. The Ripple versus SEC case had a massive impact, not just on Ripple, but on XRP's price as well. Now, I genuinely believe XRP was suppressed for over 4 years because of the Ripple versus SEC case. And here's the thing. I still think XRP needs to go through a recovery phase on the price side as well. I had this fascinating conversation with Beyond Broke, where we talked about the Robbie Mitchnick calculator for XRP. You've got to hear this.
An individual from Franklin Templeton that essentially said, look, these are global commodities, right? They're not stocks. They're not things like this. I know, interestingly, BlackRock's head of digital assets, Robert Mitchnick, actually wrote a paper alongside an individual on the board of Ripple. Have you seen that paper about the valuation of Ripple?
I have.
And one of the high estimates for that valuation, by the way, and we'll probably throw it up on screen, was $32.90 cents, right?
Well, yeah, in the paper, but Robbie actually created a calculator. It's difficult to find online now.
Okay.
But it actually shows how XRP would need to operate at around $10,000 per token.
Wow.
To fulfill its actual use case. Interesting that Robbie's now in the position there at BlackRock.
And I stumbled upon this paper because we were talking about ETFs with someone, and I said, I think people are underestimating how much volume the XRP ETF's actually going to see. I think it's going to beat Ethereum, certainly to get to that $10 billion mark. It was 250 something days. I don't think it will quite beat Bitcoin at 52 days. I could be horrifically wrong. I'd love to be wrong as an XRP holder. So I think it falls somewhere between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think if you look at what the CME futures have done, they're the fastest ever futures to get to $1 billion in open interest.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months. Yep. Crazy. And so I think people underestimate that. And one question came up, well, BlackRock's not going to offer an XRP ETF. And I said, well, why wouldn't they? Robbie literally worked at Ripple in 2017, wrote papers on valuing it. Seems logical, right?
Well, anytime they've been asked about it, and Brad as well, they just say, I can't talk about that.
Right. Yeah, they give us the wink, as it were.
Yeah.
But this is interesting stuff. And I think also in terms of how do you value this stuff, and we'll get on to maybe how you're looking at valuing this stuff.
So what he was actually referring to was the XRP calculator. And Robbie Mitchnick calculated that XRP would need to be around $4,918. But here's where it gets really interesting. When they factored in everything beyond just cross-border payments, that's how they arrived at that $10,000 per XRP price point. Now, the fact that Robbie Mitchnick is over at BlackRock right now, I'm absolutely certain he and Larry Fink have had some very deep conversations about Ripple and XRP. A lot of people think Ripple actually sent Robbie to work at BlackRock, like he was deployed there rather than just leaving Ripple to join BlackRock. That's just speculation, but it's interesting speculation. When it comes to those ETFs, BlackRock is either going to have an XRP ETF or they're extremely well positioned for when it happens. There's no other way around it because BlackRock does not miss out on major money opportunities, especially when there's going to be massive institutional XRP demand. They don't miss out on crypto opportunities, and they don't miss out on any major opportunities, period. But here's what I really want to talk about. We honestly don't know how fast XRP is going to reach these price points. I always try to create a timeline based on real-world events happening right now. What's going on at this very moment? They're actively trying to devalue the US dollar. That's crystal clear. They're sending it all around the world while simultaneously looking to offload US debt. Something new has to replace a broken, continuously devalued dollar. Something has to step up and fill that role.
That's exactly why I believe we're heading toward a gold-backed system. How quickly will this happen? Well, it depends on how fast they continue devaluing the dollar. At some point, something has to break. And that's when we'll most likely see the reset. With that reset, many people believe XRP's price will have a flip of the switch moment. Remember, it was always supposed to happen after the crash. The switch gets flipped, and XRP goes parabolic up to 4 or 5 digits, like an overnight event. If I had to put a timeline on this based on everything I've observed up to this point, I think this happens by 2028. So if you're going to become a legend by holding XRP, you probably don't have to hold it very long from here. Most people are going to be retired off of XRP by 2028 if everything continues falling into place the way it is right now. If this acceleration continues, 2028 will most likely be the big year. But here's the thing. A lot of people will already be out of XRP by 2026 and 2027 because we're going to hit some absolutely crazy price points in this cycle. By next year, early next year, XRP should already be sitting comfortably in 2-digit territory, possibly even 3-digit territory. Where it goes from there? We'll have to see how things play out. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. I truly appreciate all of you. I'll catch you in the next one, and remember, we're building something legendary here.